It's April 27th, um, 2023. Um, I'm watching the see the BS this morning. I'm trying to extrapolate and interpolate correctly from my one situation, and I don't know who the interior designer is for what goes on in the morning, but I do have to say that I see like it looks like a real effort going on in order to communicate properly, for which I greatly appreciate. Um, However, the God works, and however magic works at the kingdom, I really have. I'm really not sure. Um, so um, I looked in the book of life that I purchased just recently, looking for answers. There was really nothing Air Force necessarily related in here. I did go on exploration to the Museum of the Intrepid. There, like, it brought together what's going on with the Patriots and 80 for Brady with Jane Fonda, who's the only workout coach I ever had, but not in personal quantum entanglement. She was on a VHS cassette while I was in the House of Mirrors and that series of rooms at the Glen. Um, so I'm watching, and they, James Corbin, lovely accent, I have to say. I love their accents, but he comes on. He does something called a crosswalk show of theater, um, and today it reminds me if I go to the Intrepid, and if there's like a Blue Angel somewhere on this side that I'm supposed to be like nestled under his wing, and I'm just one of the flowers that he wraps his wing around and protects, like I am the most important female on his flight deck. If and only if I'm one of those flowers. I'm RH sensitive, so it just makes sense. Um, the production that they're wearing all blue, and they put on this theater production, and at the end of the production, James, like, they're singing, he's like, wait, we didn't have time to do Fiddler on the Roof. He's like, if I was a rich man, da 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 da. And then he walks out and somebody's honking at him. The people in the cars are looking at this crosswalk theater production like, what's going on with you all? Like, they don't seem very entertained. They seem more upset about the holdup. But again, they're doing this crosswalk, whatever, and somebody's honking, and James Corbin goes, "Why are you? Don't honk at me! I don't. You know who I am? I'm a star." And then all of a sudden, he gets hit by a car, and I'm like, an automobile. And I'm like, oh, that just, again, how's that going to look to the angles elsewhere in Red Barons? And oh my goodness. I mean, Snoopy is the one who brought Red Baron to the forefront of my consciousness. So, and that's a peanut, like in the, there's the Far Side, there's the Peanuts. So Snoopy and Woodstock had this Red Baron cartoon. I linked it to my Facebook just so you know when I became consciously aware of it. There's a date on that. Not sure where it fit into like reality, but it has, as of today, come in handy. And then in here, I realized there was an Engels mention, but Ramstein was really crucial in their angry theater music of letting me know that the Armenian, by the way, thank you to he locally, told me there's an Air Force base named Ramstein. I had no idea. But there was an angry theater music that I heard, and they brought to the forefront of my mind I should probably look for the translation of angles, which goes to angels. So again, blue here, Red Baron elsewhere, Justice Snoopy, and then there's the whole other side of wait, what, right. So I'm watching this and I'm just in a interesting, and then they come on this morning with this thing with the Disney and Ron DeSantis and Don't Say Gay, and then this world resort in theory of they are functioning here and paying their own taxes, and I'm just like, oh, that sounds like a whirlwind of. I'm like, okay, listen, I don't know if it was a donkey or an elephant responsible for messing up my entire flower season just so the blue angel doesn't get hit by an automobile while he's in the crosswalk at any time. I am the innocent flower here, protected by the blue angel wing of. I was promised to somebody very special, and I was looking forward to a life with he. I don't know whether it was a donkey or an elephant, but I'm RH sensitive, and it looks like I go to a retreat weekly. In They don't really. I didn't find a mention of a God in the Life magazine. I also did not, at the museum map of the Intrepid, did not find mention of the God. But fourth grade sent me a letter at the door in a manila envelope that I was assigned God. So I found the place in the local area. I went into several buildings just to make sure the God is being spoken of, and how it's being spoken of. In several buildings, I confirmed that they still have this one God, just so the George Washington and the general, because that seems on the dollar bill that we have on the pledge. It's under one God. So this is the only general I'm aware of. So that seems really, really important, and it's still in place and still in practice in the field. So that's like a big, whew, thank God for that. Right. Yeah. So I would go on. Yesterday, I went on a call with the God community group under the Red Cross that's in this area. So I go into that building on Sundays, and then during the week on Wednesday there was a Zoom call. They read something, passage from John, passage from Luke, and Luke, I was like, whoa. But I could hear we may not have been alone in the metaverse or the hyperspace. I'm not quite sure. There seemed to be some kind of like whatever, radio static in the background on my side of the Zoom call, however that works. But there was this, oh, and yesterday they mentioned something about IP address, which I'm like, how is that important? But I don't want to get off topic. So I found the God. I found where the God is relevant. Just like in fourth grade, I went to St. John's and they spoke of the God. They sang about it, like they read about it in the missal or the bulletins on Sunday. Um, and that was crucial while I was spending time in the Glen, in the House of Mirrors. And then there is this call yesterday, and they were talking about the God like is good in the kingdom, and I'm like, great, okay, so um, I don't know again if it was a donkey or an elephant that was responsible for messing up the garden and my personal RH sensitive flower time. I'm not sure. However, um this God is good thing, I'm like, um I'm gonna just stay quiet flower on that for a moment. But I did see where the God came through was they had a Good Friday production of Theater Works at the local Red Cross Episcopal building. Um, and I went into that sanctuary, retreat, sanctuary, whichever. I sat in the pew and it was all dark. And then the robed men came out and they chanted, and then they lit the candle. And it represented the darkness of, for me, it was the communication. Like Jesus had died, and the people in the sanctuary did not know what came next. There was no communications, there was no anything. And so I'm in this pew and I'm walking through this, and I experienced it, and it didn't really hit me right away. I mean, like I was I was in the church theater and I was watching their production, and I felt like I was part of something really special, and I was grateful for the invitation to see it this way because I've never seen it produced this way as a representation of what Good Friday actually stands for. And then they light the candle after each witness read something, and the lights started in a very definitive way coming on until you got to the front of the church. And then they, at the end, they speak this word, and then the lights in the church come on, and at the end they have a better idea of what they are to do. So that was really helpful, and that's the good that I've seen as a flower in the kingdom of this area just recently. But I'm in my 44th year as a flower in the garden, and it took 44 years to find that out. And where it really struck home is not when I was living in the first person, but when I had to explain in the third person what I experienced and put it into words, um, to Linda and Lou, who are essentially atheist. I mean, they've experienced the AT time at the heist, in whatever fashion they've been led to flower in Linda's season of being in the garden of life. Um, and so when I had to explain it back in the third person of exactly what I witnessed, it took on a life totally different through the interpretation or through the witness statement, than it had just going through it in the first person, just as a human experiencer. But to have to recant, reiterate, or to iterate in the third person for the first time was really crucial, because it took on a completely different symbolic meaning for the two atheists that were at the breakfast table, sitting at the kitchen table, when I had to explain to them my human experience going through this church theater that was going on in my first invitational to join them, which I gratefully appreciate. Um, so I'm going to put on this theater production, and I'm like, look at these blue angels this morning. I mean, like, they're not the real blue angels with the wings, but they're maybe sent by some portion of the God. I mean, again, I had to go to the museum to realize why 80 for Brady in an anniversary year. That was just so important for. And they didn't put on the Sabres and the Pirates, I noticed, or the Buccaneers, whatever that means, from Florida. They put on the New England Patriots in the movie 80 for Brady, where, like, just like a step back in time, there's a wrinkle and there's some stitches in time. again, I got whatever I got going on my headgear. So I'm just going to reference this part I saw this morning, because it really, in the third person, when I explain it back, it takes on a whole nother, like just a flower in the garden who's really been hurt. And I know there's a blue angel with his wings that could just wrap himself around me and protect me like God gave him wings for, originally, since I am his responsibility here. Knowing that somewhere in world stage and world theater, he has other winged representatives, and they may fight over teams and turf and maybe potentially flowers. I'm not really sure. But again, I'm not here to start fights. I just have a witness statement of, I've been very hurt as a flower here. I don't know if it's a donkey or an elephant. Could be either. Those seem to be the only two choices. I don't think the independent party, for which whatever on, has a representative in the forefront of it. But there's some housekeeping things that need to be gone over in a respectful way. Now, this woman seems like she's slightly entertained. That's what the read I get off of her. It's more interesting the guy in the truck who's like, what are they doing?
The Late Late Show brought traffic to a standstill for one final Crosswalk musical. It was a tour de force in the...
Yeah, I live around a lot of this. They don't really seem to get theater. They don't appreciate, like, I mean, some do. But for the most part, when they've got to go to work and their jobs are being threatened, they can't pay their bills, and real serious, like, disruptions are going on, they seem less interested. They seem less interested in the theatrics of whatever the Blue Angels sent from the GOT are thinking that they're doing. I mean, it's just what I've noticed. If anybody cares to know what a flower notices in the garden, I mean, normally they don't speak, but in this case, I've been harmed, and I don't know by exactly which one.
Streets of LA as James Corden goes out with a bang.
There's so many shows we never did. We never did Fiddler on the Roof if I was a rich man. Don't honk at me, I am a star.
This morning's eye opener is presented by Progressive, making it
Right, like, see, again, if you watch it as a flower who has this blue angel wing around her that has kept her safe her whole life as best he can from wherever blue angels exist with wings, in a theory, um, that is really concerning to the flower in the garden. That last piece, it seems very disruptive, and I don't know who would want to run him over with an automobile. Um, I don't know if Blue Angels ever get frightened of anything. I don't know if he's frightened of getting run over by an automobile. But again, at the Council of Winged Beings, it seems theoretically possible. I mean, I've heard, maybe not in this particular space, but that flowers are really important to any winged being. That likes flowers. I mean, again, I don't know if everybody likes flowers, but there are a certain group that really like flowers. They really enjoy respectable, classy flowers. Some like bouquets, some like the individuality. Again, I'm not judging I'm not even spectating. I am just, there's someone who's trampled in the New York garden. I don't know if it was an elephant, I don't know if it was a donkey, but some of the flowers in the garden have been stepped on and got hurt. And I just thought that the respectful winged beings, whomever they are, who like flowers, might want to know, um, because I still need a little help in the garden because I'm being housed at the moment without options to fix and correct my situation with someone who has a black stiletto on the or a black cross on the inside of his whatever this nook part is, and I don't know how that assignment, like, did my blue angel approve that? I'm Or is that some other fight going on? I'm really I'm confused as a flower. I am. So, as a respectful, confused flower in the garden who's been trampled on by I don't know whom, I'm watching this morning respectfully from a chair in my mother's area, not really sure why I was brought to birth or brought here to earth as a human and as an incarnate. I also have clocks. Not only am I RH sensitive, but I have clock service because I have symmetrical clock, which is incredibly important with timing and with anatomicals um, at Germinants here.
The long-running feud in Florida between Disney and Republican Governor Ron DeSantis is now headed to court. The company has filed a First Amendment lawsuit against DeSantis, a potential GOP presidential candidate. Did so yesterday, alleging he has led, quote, a targeted campaign of government retaliation, close quote, against Disney ever since Disney publicly criticized the state's so-called Don't Say Gay bill last March. Manuel Bojorquez has more.
Disney's lawsuit was filed just minutes after a board appointed by Governor Ron DeSantis nullified provisions that allowed the company to largely govern the land around Disney World. In its suit, Disney calls the board's decision patently retaliatory, patently anti-business, and patently unconstitutional. DeSantis has called Disney's opposition to the law out of line and, while on a visit to Israel this morning, addressed the suit.
They're upset because they're actually having to live by the same rules as everybody else. They don't want to have to pay the same taxes as everybody else, and they want to be able to control things without proper oversight.
The feud goes back to March of last year when Disney spoke out against the state's parental rights and education law, which bans lessons relating to sexual orientation and gender identity in Florida classrooms. The controversial law, which previously only applied to grades K through 3, was expanded in recent weeks through the 12th grade.
In Florida, gender ideology has no place in our schools, and if that means taking on Disney to make sure that's the case, we will do it.
This is a lot about his image and how he's perceived Republican primary voters, and they feel like this helps them.
GOP political consultant Terry Sullivan doesn't see DeSantis backing down.
I just think they've taken the original ball, they've poked a lot of holes in it, and where it may have been a hard ball at one time and really got stuff done for the blue winged or the winged beasts somewhere in the world, or angels, whatever they want to be called, um, it feels like now they're playing with a wiffle ball. And then at some higher and out of reach place, they internally argue over the holes and the fact that they no longer have a hard ball. And that they're playing with not even a softball at this point. It just doesn't have the same impact or whatever that they needed.
as the governor weighs a potential 2024 presidential campaign.
But if he were to want to get to a general election and actually get there, what does it mean at that point?
You cross that bridge when you come to it.
Disney is a heavy economic hitter in Florida. It's the largest taxpayer in the state, employs more than 75,000 people there, and is a major driver of tourism. The company projects it will draw around 50 million visitors to Florida this year. In comments at Disney's shareholder meeting earlier this month, CEO Bob Iger appeared to foreshadow the lawsuit.
A company has a right to freedom of speech just like individuals do. The governor got very angry about the position Disney took, and it seems like he's decided to retaliate against us.
I think there is something there to Disney's argument.
CBS News legal contributor Jessica Levinson acknowledged DeSantis' claim that his administration is simply treating Disney as all other businesses in the state are treated. But she added this.
It seemed like everything was fine in terms of how Disney was being treated until they started criticizing the government. That's where you get that freedom of speech claim.
For CBS Mornings, I'm Manuel Bojorquez.
Up next, Vlad Dute has the stories that you'll be talking about today. But first,
So that's what the Americans are speaking about today. So I'm being told. I have no idea what it really means. I don't have access to any of them. And when I go into the house of the God or the house of God through the Red Cross doors, which again, I mean, like, I've heard them speak of this Red Cross in like nobility times, as crusaders of some sort. But again, I'm just a flower in the garden who's been trampled by, I mean, it's 44 years now, somewhere between an elephant and a donkey. Not quite sure which one had this black cross on its hand come after me after so many years of disruption and being swarmed by RH positive, which is a RH sensitive issue that I inherited, and I don't know how to traverse that very sensitive topic and have a result where I am living and have quality of life and an ability to live amongst the other RH sensitives. I mean, why am I living amongst RH positives that are fighting for all sorts of reasons, and I'm just, my time on the clock is just being wasted? I mean, surely the blue-winged angel knows these things. I'm a flower in that garden. It's star 1978, star 8378, Nicole, Cattaruzza. It's Earth, solar system, Milky Way, universe, galaxies, broken. I'm going to pause this and try to see if I can pull up that thing about the FBI yesterday was mentioning this problem, this ongoing repetitive problem with the enhancement of IP phone calling. Because that opens, it's like no longer is it rotary dial or push button where it's protected by, like, let's just say it used to be when the monopoly was working, the nationally secure lines were protected by either Bell Atlantic, the Baby Bells, the AT&T, and then at some point they all got knocked out and something called a Verizon showed up, and then it's like the whole schematic it feels like it's no longer nationally secure whatsoever. And then eyewitness in the field of what is showing up and reprogramming, essentially hacking into the system. And like, where do you go to report this? Like, what, like, I mean, will I be helpful reporting this to the professionals? Don't the professionals already know that this is going on? And why aren't they able to take these, like, cells out of people opening up businesses, having license, and then the rogue community of trying to reprogram or program themselves into office buildings and the commercial property network? And I mean, it's like an invasive infection is what I feel like, like cells of roaming or hordes of piracy, but at the technology level of, I don't really know my way around. I didn't study technology theory. I'm more medical theory and germ theory, but I've seen it. I don't know how it works, but I know that they are now integrating themselves into these services. And I'm like, where did Thomas Edison go? And like the reps that kept our national security and monopoly safe. And why are there so many newcomers in these like gigantic hordes breaking into the IT and IP coding industry? And like, it doesn't even, in New York, it doesn't even look like they're permanent residents. It looks like they come here and then they leave. And I don't know how to even chase that level of detail of when are they coming, when are they going, what are the sponsors? I mean, and why are they siphoning off of the system and building something elsewhere to then come back with, it's like the right hook and the left hook. And it's just like sitting here as a flower underneath this blue wing protector of the air, and then to find out that my bird is no longer, I mean, George Washington, something happened. Somebody attacked George Washington on the front, on the head, and messed with his tail. And now I no longer have one single bird on the back. There's like 50 different options. Hold up, where did my national security go? I'm RH sensitive. Like, what more? The Americans are not speaking to me directly that I might be in danger for 44 years. How do I survive humanity at this point? Now, here's where the North Americans are speaking only on this television. This is a dangerous trend, it says, and it's a warning from the FBI in this area. Or, I mean, it's on Channel 7 News, ABC. And this is how I learned about this. The telephones are no longer like the safe technology when I had the Blue Princess phone, and we got very few phone calls. But when we were called, they were important. It was important people calling. Not many, but the highest of priority in Linda and Lou's House of Mirrors. So now it's, I don't know, they call it IP calling. There's untraceable components to it. They mask their voice or they filter their voice. I mean, these things did not exist in 1970s, 1980s. Not that the relatives that I arrived to, they didn't know any of this stuff. And we were protected by the monopoly of AT&T, or so we thought. Like, it was broken up to the landline had long distance, it had regional, and then it had local. And it was all on one protected bill system. It was itemized and it was protected. Or so it felt, and it was traceable.
Now to a dangerous trend at schools across the country. There's been a spike in the number of fake emergency calls. It's sometimes called swatting, and law enforcement officials are blaming new technology for the spike. ABC's Andrea Fujihi has the story.
New technology or the break in national security that goes along with my one general, George Washington, and the 50 tales he has going on at this point, according to, they said there's 50 states, so now each state has its own tale. Can't they get underneath the same two wings of one bird? I mean, it's dangerous the way they've broken up the telephone company and technology company. And now I've had to sit through, it was antenna television. Then they tried something with satellite dish. Then they tried something with cables. Then they tried something with digital. I mean, it's the same thing with the music. Between the LPs, the 78s, the 10s, the whatever. I mean, the records just keep on keeping on, and there's some real reality around here and some trendy words that they call it, but it keeps getting worse and more sloppy in the actual actionable field of humans and how they're being conducted or how they're conducting themselves.
A rise in so-called swatting calls has law enforcement on edge.
The alert has been canceled, and they were getting an all clear from the OU campus.
One example, an active shooter scare at the University of Oklahoma. Law enforcement swarming the campus, but it was all a hoax, a phenomenon experts say has at least doubled in the last year. Since last June, about 250 colleges and 100 high schools have received fake reports of bomb or shooting threats, causing chaos and confusion and forcing law enforcement to expend vital resources. Experts say technology, including artificial intelligence, has helped swatters, allowing them to disguise their voices and help make their calls untraceable.
Technology is being used. You're using a voice over IP. So these are not, old analog phones that are being used to call these in. This is all voice over the internet. It's all using AI and other tools.
So far this year, at least 173 mass shootings have been reported nationwide. Combine that with the number of these fake calls, and there's fatigue for everyone involved.
So the main issue is not only is it a traumatizing response to the people in the building and the teachers in the building, but it also sort of ripples out.
The FBI does not track swatting because it's not a categorized crime. Experts fear all these false alarms will prompt people to let their guards down, allowing an opportunity for something far worse to happen. Andrea Fujihi, ABC News, New York.
Well, in this afternoon's health.
So that was the end of that was on the news yesterday, which again, my mom's witnessed in her natural course of work, just sitting as a customer service rep, these crews coming in and technologically like reprogramming entire office space into some what they call secured network. But again, this goes back to what's in the vents. Like, how far has it progressed? How advanced is the issue? And who's addressing this issue and scaling it back? In data breach and in slow, it's like having a slow leak. I mean, eventually the water gets up high enough that someone in the boat notices. It's star 1978, star 8378, Nicole, Cattaruzza. It's Earth, solar system, Milky Way, universe, galaxy is broken. And it's Bayside Station, Bayside, New York, 11361.